accounts, economics, business studies. These were things which always went into my head. I was very good in studies, but ये सब क्या all this history मुझे bore कर देती थी. It never excited me. Anything to do with business used to just stick into my head. It's always about building, creating something. That's what excites me. Routine stuff bores me. I don't believe personally in this shop floor concept कि आप 4-5 साल घिस रहे हो, ऊपर जा रहे हो. It's not about घिसना. I think you waste a lot of your precious years doing rubbish work, which does not create, or it's not going to do too much stuff. झाड़ू पोछा तो मैं भी मार सकता हूँ. शॉप पे बैठ के ऐसे जोड़ना है, ये करना है. I know all of that. It's very easy. But from being zero to now being amongst the 30 largest families in the country, it's all single-handedly been built by dad. There were no other generations. We're not a political family. And when tough times come, Papa will be at it 24 hours. It doesn't matter. निकल के आना ही है, जीतना ही है. There's no running away. And I think that spirit came into me also when Wind went through a bad phase. So, you have little kids, I have little kids as well.
Yeah.
And we live in Delhi.
Absolutely.
It's the most, I think probably the most polluted city
Correct.
in the world today.
Yes.
The doctor say आपके बच्चा होता है तो the best thing you can do for your kid is leave Delhi.
Yeah, true.
Move out. Now imagine leaving leaving a legacy like this for your kids. So I think what we are doing is really trying to change the world, trying to change India, doing our bit, and I think it makes business sense, and it's a very, very good thing for the nation and the community. I mean, I remember we went from 600 net cash to 3,500 crores of debt. और सारे banks भाग गए. NCLT also came in the country. सारे creditor आपके पीछे पड़ गए, सारे banker पीछे पड़ गए. Every day was a nightmare. I think that was the period when almost 33 companies went bankrupt, shut down, exited. Being 2 billion and then being in the gutter, it is hell. It was so painful. So, sticking to what I believed in. Obviously, Papa was always backing me and I thank him for that. When we came out, and we kicked everybody's ass. That is what is the most emotionally fulfilling time. Every bank had written me off. Every investor, every employee. And आज की date में आप देखो, it's like अगर INOXGFL है तो होगा.
Mostly people have given up only.
Everyone. Not mostly given up.
Your
100 out of 100 people had given up. There's no confusion around that. But what do? Where do you run away? Our market cap over that period went from 12,000 to 300 crores. Today the renewable arm is worth 50,000 crores. And the unlisted arm is even more than that. So it was hell. Don't forget, when I built this and listed it, it became the largest company in our erstwhile combined group. We had a split in our group.
Correct.
And this was the biggest. When I listed it, I was 31. And that time the BSE chairman told me, you're the youngest self-made billionaire in that sense. Because I started Inox Wind with 10 crores. Aajkal you have a lot of the startups. But you are burning 1,000, 3, 4, 5,000.
Absolutely.
So when we listed it, it almost became 12,000 crores. It was the largest company in our group. Now you're not going to go from being the top. And जब फटती है तो आपको रहना पड़ेगा यार. Up down तो होगा life में. You can't just enjoy life and जब बजेगी तो भाग जाओ.
But ये सर up down नहीं है तो बिल्कुल down था.
क्या करें? ऐसी बधाई. It's funny. जब आप लाइफ में बहुत फेयर वेदर फ्रेंड्स. बैंकर तो होते हैं लाइन लगा के आ जाते हैं यार. जब बारिश होती है छतरी ले जाते हैं. जब बारिश नहीं होती है डबल छतरी दे देते हैं. क्या करूंगा यार उसका? So I think with that we have a very large group of investors today and they back us and some of them have really been with us through thick and thin. I just don't want to become a scientist and get an award which is not commercialized.
Correct.
Commercialization is what will change the world.
Yes.
वरना क्या फायदा? Simplistically put, I'll repeat.
Yeah.
We control 10 to 15% of an entire electric vehicle's cost. This is the single largest pie of the vehicle because you don't have gearboxes in an electric vehicle. But now we're building things with a vengeance. We're trying to make up for those 5 years. At least I'm trying to do that. Hopefully in the next 1 year we would have made up for those 5 years to the best extent that we can. We want to be champions in the entire energy transition space. As I mentioned, we're in EV, we're in wind, we're in solar, we're getting into solar, we're in power, renewable power, we're in green hydrogen. So we've captured the entire piece. Correct. I don't think we've left any piece of the energy transition piece. As I said, barring distribution we've captured everything.
Correct. Your passion has made me passionate, at least for a while. Your energy has given me energy.
क्या मंत्रास only energy? अगर energy नहीं पास करेंगे और green energy तो क्या फायदा?
Rub off कर. Nice one, sir. Nice one. Ladies and gentlemen, दुनिया में कमाल का ट्रांजिशन हो रहा है. एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन. लोग ट्रेडिशनल सोर्सेज से रिन्यूएबल सोर्सेज की तरफ जा रहे हैं. दुनिया बदल रही है. काफी कुछ बदल रहा है. इस चेंज को लीड करने वाले इंडिया में, हिंदुस्तान में, भारत में कौन लोग हैं? ये पॉडकास्ट आज उनके प्लेटफॉर्म पे है. ये पॉडकास्ट आज उनके एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर के साथ है. ये पॉडकास्ट आज उनकी लीडरशिप और उनके माइंडसेट के बारे में है. तो आज आपका स्वागत है एक ऐसी डीप डाइव इन डेप्थ कमाल की कॉन्वर्सेशन में with the one and only ED of the INOXGFL Group, Mr. Devansh Jain. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Same here, sir.
it's not too early in the day, so let's get rolling.
सर मैंने इतने सारे पॉडकास्ट आपके देखे, आई हैव सीन अ लॉट ऑफ इंटरव्यूज ऑफ योर्स, यू हैव अमेजिंग क्लैरिटी. विद दैट क्लैरिटी सर, आई वांट टू नो अ लिटिल बिट अबाउट यू, हाउ इट ऑल स्टार्टेड, हाउ योर लाइफ बिगैन सर. आपके चाइल्डहुड से आई वांट टू स्टार्ट अ लिटिल बिट. सो वेयर वर यू रेज्ड?
You know, I'm very much a Delhi boy. I was born and brought up here. I did my schooling in St. Columbus from a business family. And from the earliest memories that I have, I always had dad traveling to different parts, particularly Gujarat, because वहाँ पे तब he was building Gujarat for at that point in time. Obviously, we were not amongst the largest families, from all the stories that I hear from dad. And it was a challenge, it was a struggle for him to build it out. I even remember him telling me he came back from IIM Ahmedabad and कुछ काम नहीं था करने के लिए. So you had a paper trading shop or something. So Papa, उधर सफाई वफाई कर रही थी. So I think I've heard so many stories about dad and his struggles and him building that right from the early ages मेरे अंदर हमेशा को था कुछ करना है. बचपन से कुछ बिजनेस करना है, कुछ ये करना है वो. So I at a young age, I used to make diaries, used to print diaries. I used to sell that. Then I used to make newsletters. I used to do that. I did a lot of carpentry work back in the day.
And you were selling those things?
Yeah, selling all those things. So it was pocket money. It wasn't like, it wasn't a business. But as a child, when you're 10 years old or when you're 12 years old and आप 8 से 12 के एज में आप डायरी बना रहे हो, बेच रहे हो, आप न्यूज़लेटर्स बना रहे हो for little kids. I did a lot of carpentry. I made a boat. I made a auto rickshaw kind of a thing. And I'm telling you, when I was 8, 9, 10, so for that age, at that point in time, it seemed phenomenal. आज की डेट में तो क्या do it yourself kit ये वो आते हैं. My son makes a lot of this stuff, all those electronic gadgets. But I'm talking about 25 years ago, or maybe now 30 years ago. I'm 38. It was a very different age. So always had that instinct to do something. और वो करते and I was always looking at Papa building companies and so on and so forth. वो हमेशा ही I was a nerd, I was a geek if you may say so. So I was generally was amongst the toppers across all the studies that I did, and accounts, economics, business studies. These were things which always went into my head. Oh, geography, science. I was very good in studies, but ये सब क्या all this history मुझे bore कर देती थी. It never excited me. Anything to do with business used to just stick into my head. So I think that's how I grew up. Obviously, it was a different time and age. You had no pollution, so हम तो सारे लोग बाहर ही cricket विकेट खेलते रहते थे. Tennis, cricket. Those were, I think every generation goes through different phase. So I had a lot of fun at that point in time. I love cricket, yeah.
You watch cricket still?
Oh, yeah.
You're watching the match that's happening today? Any idea?
यार ये आजकल रोज तो नहीं देख सकते, but World Cups, yes. IPL, all the IPL matches. I love IPL. It's very quick.
Yeah, correct.
ये वो रोज ये इतने series चल रहे हैं. There's no time. That ET Now app keeps showing what's happening, but other than that, no, I don't watch it every day. But I think that's what it was about. And then I went to the States to study. I went to Carnegie Mellon. But even there, I did a dual degree in 3 years and I came back. Because I wanted to come back and start working. So, and do something.
You're more excited to work.
It's always about building, creating something. That's what excites me. Routine stuff bores me. And so I came back. At that point in time, we could debate, discussion chal raha tha. Work outside for a year or two, and I was clear. Look, if I want to work outside and waste time, या तो 5 साल करो आई बैंकिंग में. The first 2 years is just basic stuff. अब मुझे एक्सेल पे काम करना और बॉस के लिए कॉफी लाना तो मेरे सिर के ऊपर जा रहा था. So I think I somehow prevailed. Dad was keen for me to come back. Mom was saying बाहर काम करो, and I came back, and I think that was the beginning of the journey to building out a lot of businesses. And I followed a lot of the senior people, spent a lot of time. तब तो क्या है, आप पापा didn't let me speak because obviously when you're a new guy क्या बोलोगे आप सारे सीनियर लोगों के साथ. So you're shadowing them. 10-12 घंटे आप बैठे रहते हो मीटिंग में, कुछ कर नहीं रहे. तो मैं तो आधे टाइम सो जाता था. And I would get a kick under the table.
एक personal question that I have.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable answering that.
Sure.
Which is your favorite IPL team and who's your favorite player?
Boss, it's LSG. It's owned by my father-in-law.
Achha,
so I think I'm very loyal. I don't think there's any doubt. And I think there are a lot of good players. अब तो सारे teams reshuffle हो गए हैं. But I think it's a lot of fun watching Tewatia, Rinku. I mean Rohit Sharma is Rohit Sharma.
Correct.
Kohli is super. I think Quinton is good, and I think now Pant is coming to LSG, so hopefully that'll be very interesting.
Now we come to the part when you came back from the States, and मैं आपका एक इंटरव्यू देख रहा था, इसके अंदर आपने बताया कि you wanted to do something on your own, but you were asked to shadow the senior people.
Sure.
How was that entire thing playing out, sir?
No, look, I think I always wanted to do something on my own, but I think it was important to understand how businesses are actually run, right? बाहर से देख रहे हो, you're seeing your father, you're hearing about things, and I think when I came back, it was important. I don't believe personally in this shop floor concept कि आप 4-5 साल घिस रहे हो, ऊपर जा रहे हो. It's not about घिसना. I think you waste a lot of your precious years doing rubbish work, which does not create, or it's not going to do too much stuff. झाड़ू पोछा तो मैं भी मार सकता हूँ. शॉप पे बैठ के ऐसे जोड़ना है, ये करना है. I know all of that. It's very easy. But I think when you're 20, 21, 22, the energy and enthusiasm you bring, I think that should be honed. And I mean it for everybody.
Correct.
वहाँ 5 साल उसको बैठा दे तो तू भाई ये घिस, फिर HR में बैठ, फिर फाइनेंस में बैठ, ये वो बेचारा 5 साल की एनर्जी तो निकल गई उसकी. Fortunately for me, my dad said shadow all the people. Yes, I'd been to the plants. I shadowed all the people, absorbed. As I said, मैं सो भी जाता था meetings में. But it gave me a lot of insight into how they think, how you take decisions. And the most important thing I think is taking decisions. Majority of the people fail क्योंकि ना वो right जा रहे हैं ना left जा रहे हैं, वो बीच में खड़े हुए हैं. तो ना तो आप आगे बढ़ रहे हो ना भी. Say yes or say no. लटक के तो आप कुछ करने नहीं वाले. So I think, and then at that point in time we were working with McKinsey to identify a new business. So fortunately that was renewables, where, you know, which concept we brought. And then we got them to study it a bit more for us and so on and so forth.
And Gujarat Fluorochemicals by then was well established.
Fluoro was very large, of course. Papa built it from scratch. I think he made Fluoro the largest fluorochemical company in the country. Way larger than some of the top 10 families, which used to, still are. I don't think they're anywhere close to where Papa is. But I think Fluoro was large, and we had to move to other businesses as well, deploy that cash. So uske baad, we worked with McKinsey to get into renewables. I think our initial foray into renewables did not play out the way we thought. And then we structured it, figured out क्या करना है, कैसे करना है. And then it came out कि आप turbine भी बनाओ अपना खुद का. So I spent almost a year and a half across China studying supply chains, figuring out कैसे होता है, technology कहाँ से लाएं, क्या करें. 2009 is when we incorporated Inox Wind, and then we hit the ground running.
Correct. Sir, your father is an absolute legend of the industry. Sir, how's your relationship with him? And मैं चाहूँगा कि आप 2-3 मिनट लेके उनके बारे में हमें बताएं कि what kind of a man he is.
Look, I think my relationship with that is all about work. You know, 99% of our conversations are about work. It used to be 110% work. It's now reduced to 99%, if I may say so. So there's 1% other conversation. But I think there are two people who really, who I idolize, or I would say I've learned from, who are people who you look up to. Yeah, of course, a lot of people look up to their fathers and so on and so forth, and it may sound cliched. But I always say this, it's Dad and Gautam Bhai. Dad from the perspective of resilience and being at it no matter what happens. From being zero to now being amongst the 30 largest families in the country. It's all single-handedly been built by Dad. There were no other generations. We're not a political family. And when tough times come, Papa will be at it 24 hours. It doesn't matter. Nikal ke aana hi hai, jeetna hi hai. There's no running away. And I think that spirit came into me also when Wind went through a bad phase. So I would say Papa's very, very resilient. He perseveres. I don't think there's anyone more persevering.
Correct.
And I think besides that, it doesn't seem from his outward approach, because he's not a very social person in that sense, but he is so ambitious. So, you know, I'm very ambitious. I'm ahead of Dad in that sense. But agar let's say we set up a target of 3 gigawatt लगाना है, वो Papa will suddenly come and say 5 gigawatt क्यों नहीं कर रहे? And when you're getting close to 2, ramp up, just go ahead. So, you know, we've just forayed into solar, and I'll give you that example. 2 months ago, we decided we're getting in, and in February, our plants start. That's 4 months from start to inception, getting everything going.
Correct.
Building the plants, getting the supplies.
So from the first thought to the plant.
To getting the plant up, 4 months. Papa said, speed up. He was telling me yesterday, in fact. I said, Papa, 4 महीने में zero से hero बना रहे हैं यार, अब overnight और क्या करूँ? What else do I speed up? जल्दी करो यार, January target करो. I said, 2 महीने में तो Pop, it's not possible. We still need to figure out the logo of Inox Solar. Yeah. We put up a draft logo. I think we are finalizing the logo of that company this week. But I think we hit the ground running so aggressively. So dad is very, very aggressive in that sense. And what's important also is he likes to build businesses of scale. Which are, I'm saying more business because for me and dad, the entire relationship is about business. We're always talking about what next, how do we do it, kya karna
Breakfast,
hai.
lunch, dinner, it's all about business.
It's business, always. It's like I said, 99% of our conversations are about work. But I think he loves the grandchildren. He's always with them. It's a different matter how I am, but I think he's a.
It has changed him a little bit.
Oh, of course,
The
of course.
grandchildren's?
I mean, my daughter, she's 7. She has dad wrapped around her little finger. So, my son has dadi wrapped around his finger. So anything Avya wants, it's dad out there. But that's how it is. Yeah.
Correct. And who's the second person that you admire the most?
I mentioned Gautam Bhai. I think I had the fortune of spending a lot of time with him. We built out a lot of wind for him. Spent a lot of time with him. He's a mentor. He's a guide. The amount of time he spent guided, and I think a lot of the concepts we bring, I implement across a lot of the businesses are from a lot of the learnings I've had with Gautam Bhai. And he's a guy who's, sometimes you think if you're about 20 billion,
Correct.
अरे हो गया आप थोड़ा retire करो. वो 20 billion जाते हैं कहते हैं 200 billion जा रहे हैं. It's a number. His ambition, his aggression is unparalleled. We know a lot of industrialists in the family, relatives, beyond that. I don't think I've come across anybody of the scale, caliber, ambition, vision is Gautam Bhai. So I think these are the two people
Brilliant.
who I look up to.
Sir, this podcast is going to go on your channel. आपकी इतनी सारी कंपनीज हैं सर, इतनी कंपनीज हैं और लोग आपको पूछते हैं, एंड आई गॉट रियली कंफ्यूज्ड व्हाइल रिसर्चिंग अबाउट इट. सर, आई वांट यू टू एक्सप्लेन टू मी कि हाउ मेनी कंपनीज डू यू हैव, हाउ मेनी सब्सिडरीज डू यू हैव, क्या है सर, कितनी सारी हैं?
I have not counted, but I would say there are 2 arms.
System से, हाँ.
There's a chemical arm and there's a renewable arm.
Got it.
Under the chemical arm, we have Gujarat Fluoro, which
ठीक
is
है.
the world's second largest fluoropolymer producer.
ठीक है.
Under that, we're building out now the world's largest EV battery chemical business, ex-China. That's called GFCLEV.
Correct.
Where we recently raised 1,000 crore.
And one of the biggest plants is also going to come in?
That's right. That's the world's largest.
World's largest?
Outside of China.
Wow.
China's scale is a little
हाँ,
different.
ठीक है.
That's a company which is very close. We're building that aggressively. We recently raised 1,000 crores at a 3 billion valuation there. So that's EV, as mentioned to you about Gujarat Fluoro. Then there's another entity called GFCL Green Hydrogen and Solar, where we're setting up very high-end fluoropolymers for the hydrogen ecosystem and solar, and the PEM membranes for electrolyzers. So that's still being built out. I think in another 2 years, maybe that should be another fairly large company in the group. So these are the 3 chemical companies.
Chemical companies.
Now, within the operating arms, you have 8, 10, 12 subsidiaries. That's, those are just
Correct.
structuring.
Correct.
Under the renewable arm, I think there's confusion because there are a lot of companies. The parent is Inox Wind, which is India's second largest wind turbine company. Then we have Inox Green, which is also listed, which is India's largest listed operations and maintenance services company.
Got it.
And then we have another company called Resco, which we've renamed Inox Renewable Solutions. That is which we're demerging, so it should get listed next year. That should become the largest listed wind EPC player. So these are the 3 wind arms. And now we're building out 2 other companies which are privately owned. One is Inox Solar, where we announced a 5 gigawatt solar module foray and a 2.5 gigawatt going up to 5 gigawatt solar cell foray. That's the company I said we conceptualized 2 months ago, and by Feb we start production. And the other company, which is also privately owned, is called IGREL Renewables, where we are setting up 3 gigawatts of hybrid capacity, wind and solar, where we own the assets and we sell power. And on top of this is Inox Clean Energy, which owns these 2 entities. So broadly, this is how we are structured currently. I think our plates are full.
कैसे कर रहे हैं sir? How are you doing this? How are you managing all this, sir?
I think it's very exciting building, but it's equally important that each company has its own management team, is strong, and has reached a point where you can build something out.
Correct.
So when the sector was down, there's nothing, you can't do anything. So if you see over the past 18 months, we have created such a strong moat along our renewable arm that we're now just capturing the entire energy transition piece. I don't want to leave any piece of the energy transition piece.
Each and everything.
Outside. So we've got manufacturing, we've got project development, project execution, services,
Operation
and
maintenance.
now power,
Correct.
power supply.
Huh.
End goal.
Huh.
The only thing which we don't have is distribution.
Huh.
I think that I've left to my father-in-law in CESC.
Acha.
So that's how it is. Yeah.
Sir, I want to understand your journey with the renewable arm. What is your philosophy behind it? What have you seen in the world? How does that motivate you? How is the world changing? I want to know your take on this entire thing.
Look, I think the mission is very clear, right? Of course, business is first, but the goal primarily was to create a very, very large, impactful business in the green arena. And I think when we started this business in 2009-10, renewables was not sexy. Yeah. Renewables was a futuristic business.
Correct.
Today, renewables is the hottest segment. I don't think there is any corporate which is not in renewables, either AI or renewables. These are the two hottest segments.
Correct.
AI is something which is burn,
Yeah.
or unless you understand that very well. But renewables mein to har aadmi ghus raha hai. And I think for us, what was very important when we moved in early, and the reason for us to move in early was in Gujarat, Furu, we had the world's first and largest CDM project at that time, Clean Development Mechanism project.
ठीक है.
So we were very keyed into the carbon markets, greenhouse gas emissions, Montreal Protocol, Kyoto Protocol. So at that point in time, we thought future, let's do our bit and let's create a large business around that as well. So today when we look at it, we want to be champions of the energy transition piece. So the mission and the vision is very, very clear. We are a group which is new age, new energy. We want to have a very, very lastful impact on India. I mean, we're playing in India. Of course, EV is a global play, but in India, we want to be amongst the largest in the energy transition piece. And that also greens India. So, you have little kids, I have little kids as well.
Yeah.
And we live in Delhi. It's the most, I think, probably the most polluted city
Correct.
in the world today.
Yes.
The doctor say, aapke bachcha hota hai, so the best thing you can do for your kid is leave Delhi.
Yeah, true.
Move out.
Yeah.
Now, imagine leaving leaving a legacy like this for your kids. So I think what we are doing is really trying to change the world, trying to change India, doing our bit. And I think we are. It makes business sense, and it's a very, very good thing for the nation and the community. Yeah.
Sir, out of all your businesses that I know of, wind is the coolest that I find. Like actually, wind is the coolest. And
Why
the
do you say
turbines,
so?
Sir, turbines and all of those, they are massive.
Right.
Sir, do you remember the first turbine manufacturing facility that you made the day it got started? I want you to just tell us about that day.
This was a day in March 2010. I got married in around that time, and I was on my honeymoon. And I told my wife, look, our plant is starting up. So for me, work is priority for the next 18 months. So she was very clear. Work was my first love. And though back in the day, my work hours used to be 17, 18 hours. Yeah.
And these days?
Nowadays it's 10 hours.
Still 10 hours.
I start early in the morning. My thing might start later, but morning it starts. I keep doing what I have to do because there's so many businesses you're building. Building excites me, right? Whereas operations have now been taken over after running the entire operation. So now you create more. Don't waste time. Piche baith ke kya karna hai? So this was in March 10, where the plant was going live and we had some fiscal benefits. So if 31st March miss kar dete, to band baj jati. So I remember we had airlifted certain components and the plane landed and there was some Prime Minister or Minister or some delegation coming in and the plane had to fly back out कि उसको वो landing permission के साथ वो unloading का time नहीं मिला. And we panicked because if you don't have that component, the turbine is not complete. So then the plane came back again. We were on the phone all the time. The plane came back again. We unloaded that cargo, rushed it, got the turbine made and got it out. Because अगर 31st March में आपने नहीं cut करा होता, the fiscal incentives were ending. So that's when we made the first turbine. Commissioning that first turbine, I think took us about 5 months. Now it's a one-day job. It took us 5 months because we didn't know jack about wind turbines. None of us were experienced. None of us knew. ये problem, वो problem, ये miss कर दिया, वो miss कर दिया, ये issue आ रहा है, वो issue आ रहा है. It was a nightmare that time. Yeah. It took us almost 5 months. But yeah, ever since now it's even in our sleep we know how to commission turbines. Yeah.
So there was a policy change by the government. A policy change हुई and it became one of the I think it became one of the toughest challenges for you, one of the toughest times for you. A lot of companies vanished and a lot of companies collapsed. Sir, वो पूरा किस्सा क्या है if you don't mind explaining, sir? And how did you come out of it? Sir, उसके बारे में let's.
I think what the government did was move from feed-in tariffs, yani preferential tariffs, to auctions, which was a very good thing in terms of efficiency. Because अगर the wind market 2-3 gigawatt हर साल था, if you remove the crutches and the subsidy element, you can make it a 10 gigawatt market. Globally, renewables has started become very, very competitive. So हर country ने larger goals कर दिए, 30 gigawatt, 50 gigawatt, 200 gigawatt over 5-10 years. India also said we want a very large capacity coming in. But अगर आप ये crutch लगा के बैठो, 5 रुपए 6 रुपए पे बैठो, power बेचो, none of the discoms wanted to buy this power. It's too expensive यार. आप future generation green, clean कर रहे हो, but रोटी कपड़ा मकान और power cost is most important in our country at that point, at least then. With auctions coming in, it would make us move to a more efficient product. Would make the PPAs backed by the central government, make payment security more important. The problem was, as happens many times in the country, is the intent is good by the government. There is central policy. But power is a state policy. तो जब सेंटर ने निकाला, the tariff discovered became 40% lower than the preferential tariffs. और जब ये हुआ, सारे states ने power लेना बंद कर दिया. And जो projects लग रहे थे, with the policies and वो, they said भाड़ में जाए, कुछ नहीं होगा. वो सारे IPPs जिनने ऑर्डर दिए थे वो भाग गए फॉर नो फॉल्ट ऑफ आवर्स, वी आर नॉट गारंटीड एनीथिंग, वो भाग गए. आप कोर्ट ले जाओ, हम कोर्ट लेकर जाएंगे तो 10 साल तक लड़ते रहते, वो 10 साल में हम तो ऊपर ही पहुंच जाते बॉस. सो व्हाट हैपेंड इज एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ दैट all the wind turbine manufacturers got saddled with inventory, debt and no money. I mean, I remember we went from 600 net cash to 3,500 crores of debt. और सारे बैंक्स भाग गए. NCLT also came in the country. सारे क्रेडिटर आपके पीछे पड़ गए, सारे बैंकर पीछे पड़ गए. Every day was a nightmare. I think that was the period when almost 33 companies went bankrupt, shut down, exited. We were very clear that this is brilliant for the industry in terms of the auctions coming in. Yes, this pain was unwelcome, but we kept meeting the government ministry. They kept saying एक quarter और जब आपको वो बोले जा रहे हैं और आप देख रहे हो तो it's like a rubber band. ठीक है, we said चलो we'll stick on, we have to stick on. वो साला रबर बैंड ऐसा खींचा वो खींच के तोड़ दिया, फिर जोड़ दिया, फिर खींचा, फिर तोड़ दिया. फिर someone told me कि 2 साल बस बैंड ही बैंड बजेगी और लीगली करेंगे, maybe I would have done something different, right? But वो खींच के and we were so deep in, then there was no running away because it had to come back. But who had the ability to survive, who had the resilience to survive, who could deal with this pain. Every day was a new legal case. Every day was a new banker bajaying us. Every day the number of resignations and every HOD, every top guy would resign every month.
Mostly people have given up only.
Everyone. Not mostly given up.
Your
100 out of 100 people had given up. There's no confusion around that. But what do? Where do you run away? Don't forget, when I built this and listed it, it became the largest company in our erstwhile combined group. We had a split in our group. Correct. And this was the biggest. When I listed it, I was 31. And that time the BSE chairman told me, you're the youngest self-made billionaire in that sense. Because I started Inox Wind with 10 crores. Aajkal you have a lot of the startups, but you are burning 1,000, 3, 4, 5,000.
Absolutely.
So when we listed it, it almost became 12,000 crores. It was the largest company in our group. Now you're not going to go from being the top and जब फटती है तो आपको रहना पड़ेगा यार. Up down तो होगा life में. You can't just enjoy life and जब बजेगी तो भाग जाओ.
But ये सर up down नहीं है तो बिल्कुल down था.
क्या करें? ऐसी बधाई. It's funny. Our market cap over that period went from 12,000 to 300 crores. Today the renewable arm is worth 50,000 crores. And the unlisted arm is even more than that. So it was hell. But we just had to stick. I had to do it. I don't think I ever wanted to come to work. Those were those days. Every day was such a menace. And I remember आप 15-16 घंटे काम कर रहे हो to lose money every day, to only deal with more and more legal problems, financial problems, banking problems. But I think this also became a huge opportunity. जब बजती है और फटती है और जो भाग जाते हैं ना और जो बच जाते हैं उनकी आप देखो क्या पोजीशन बन जाती है आज की डेट में. आई थिंक देयर आर रियली 1 or 2 players in the industry. We can take as much. We have the largest ever order book. And I think the growth we are on, we're growing our wind business 5x in 3 years. It'll become mega. It is large, but it's going to just become mega as we keep moving forward. So I think I think that's what just kept driving, and we had to stick on. भाग कर जाते भी कहाँ. Look, it was not a Kodak movement. कि आप बस पैशनेट हो और गधे की तरह चले जा रहे हो. अगर फॉर एग्जाम्पल कोडैक बंद होगा या सिनेमास बंद होंगे आगे चल के तो बंद होंगे बॉस. टेक्नोलॉजी डिसरप्शन आई कांट डू एनीथिंग अबाउट. बट इफ renewables is the future and there's a pain. वो 1 साल की जगह 2 साल हो गया और 2 साल के बाद अनफॉर्चुनेटली कोविड आ गया. क्या करें यार? अदरवाइज
कोविड भी जिसके जस्ट बैक टू बैक
2 साल उसमें सड़ गए. जैसे ही सेक्टर चालू हुआ 1 क्वार्टर बाद कोविड आ गया. तो हमारा तो 4 साल का साइकिल बैंड बजी हुई थी. you're not going to run away from that.
सर आप पीछे मुड़ के देखते हैं तो how scary is it still scary or?
Look, I don't look too much into the past. I think what I would only learn from it is I've learned from all the mistakes, if whatever we made. I've learned from all the unforeseen challenges which can come, right? COVID भी आ सकता है. Government कुछ बंद भी कर सकती है. किसके पास जाके रोगे? जब फैमिली नहीं खड़ी होती तो और कौन आपका सपोर्ट करेगा? I think I build businesses and our philosophy, we are very data averse. Today the entire group is net cash.
My next question.
Before I build out businesses, I bring equity. And the good part is we've created, thankfully, God willing, so much value across investors that we have an army of investors backing us when we build new ventures. मेरे को ये याद है when Wind listed, it was, as I told you, about 12,000 crores. And people minted money on that stock. In fact, the headlines that time was Inox Wind brings the wind back into the market. It was the largest IPO in about 3 years. It was 1,000 crore IPO. आज तो बहुत छोटा है. But 2015 this was massive. आज तो 10,000 crore बड़ा होता है. But having said that, जब बजी थी, सारे लोग ये तो भूल गए और ये कहने लग गए बजा दिया यार, डुबा दिया. पूरा सेक्टर बंद हो गया बॉस. आई वाज द ओनली सर्वाइवर. मैंने कैसे डुबोया? मैंने क्या किया? मैं तो स्ट्रगल कर करके सर्वाइव करने की कोशिश कर रहा था. बट आई सेड व्हेन माय टाइम कम्स, राइट, आई विल हैव एन आर्मी ऑफ पीपल बैकिंग मी. And what I believe is, you will have ups and downs in life. That everyone has. Some will succeed, some will not succeed. Some ventures will succeed, some will fail. But I know who stuck by me. Who are not friends because you are well-to-do or rich, or whether you are poor or not well-to-do.
Nice.
That's very important to learn in life. And they're very you have social friends. You have people who will be your, आप समझ रहे हो मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ. जब आप लाइफ में बहुत फेयर वेदर फ्रेंड्स, बैंकर तो होते हैं लाइन लगा के आ जाते हैं यार. जब बारिश होती है छतरी ले जाते हैं. जब बारिश नहीं होती है डबल छतरी दे देते हैं. क्या करूंगा यार उसका. So I think with that, we have a very large group of investors today, and they back us. And some of them have really been with us through thick and thin. So I also go back to them and I try to do my bit by rewarding them and doing what we can and get them in early. You may have seen in all of the ventures we are building out, which are even in the private domain, हमने 5-10% upfront लोगों को दिया है. It's not that कि हमें 200-500 crore raise करना है. We are putting our money. I can build them out myself. But I want them to make that 10-20x, God willing.
Correct.
I'm not saying everything will succeed. But at least we are doing our best to grow them, build them, and fortunately all the businesses we are building out are building out fairly well.
Sir, when I speak to you, the amount of passion you have, the amount of energy you have, and the amount of work you have, I just want to understand, this is a very personal question, what is your daily routine like? Because आप इतना सारा काम इस एनर्जी के साथ, इस पैशन के साथ, इस लेवल पे कैसे कर रहे हैं?
देखिए, I've given, I'm not a guru or anything, but I always say, it's hard work, passion and resilience is equal to good luck. A lot of people ये नहीं चला, वो नहीं चला. अरे आपने काम करा, आपने persevere किया. Are you passionate about what you're building? जब मेरे 5 साल बची हुई थी विंड में, I was just persevering. आज की डेट में लोग देखते हैं, अरे वाह क्या बना दिया, ये कर दिया वो. आपने वो 5 साल नहीं देखे जब मेरी रोज बची रहती थी. We were a large group. Of course there was a split as I said, but GFL was fairly large. पर आप एक चीज सोचो, ग्रुप का EBITDA तब टाइम, Flora was 800, Wind was losing 500-600 crores, right? So the EBITDA was about 200 crores net, and we had 3,500 crores of debt, all thanks to Wind. Today, as we've guided, we'll 4x our EBITDA in 3 years. We're about 2,500 crores. We are net cash across the board. We are gunning for almost 8,000-10,000 crores in the next 3 years, with zero debt. IPP is different. वहाँ पे तो project finance है. So what? You have to have energy to build things. ऐसी गौतम भाई, as I said, right? आपका एनर्जी नहीं है, आप थके बैठे हो, तो आप ग्रो क्यों कर रहे हो? Even 100 crores is a lot. Even 1 crore is a lot. 10 lakhs is a lot. मैं कहाँ ब्लो करूँगा? आप 10 लाख उड़ा सकते हो. कहाँ पे उड़ाओगे आप? यार आप गाड़ी और मकान छोड़ो 1 मिनट के लिए, कहाँ पे उड़ाओगे बॉस? खाना पीना पार्टी और क्या करोगे? एक आध छुट्टी पे निकल जाओगे आप. So it's about what you want to do. I am driven by building and creating value, long-term value, and just leaving a legacy of building. I mean, legacy is too far apart. I'm too young, but building and being, leaders in what we do. And like I said, जब wind चालू करा था 15, 16, 17 घंटे होता था, पता ही नहीं था. My wife used to say, back in the day, I used to come at 11, 12, whatever time. जब जल्दी आने लग गया, अब क्यों आ रहे हो यार, आदत खराब कर दी है. Now it's not so much, to be honest. I would say office maybe about 8 to 10 hours, but I spend 2 hours in the morning on a lot of stuff.
What is that, sir?
Thinking, ideating, and doing a lot of things in my mind. I have my messaging starts at about 5, 6 in the morning. Because I sleep about 5 hours, max 6 hours in a day.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't need more sleep. But my mind is always thinking, what else, what else, what else? Someone needs to think, create. How do you do something different?
Correct.
Operationally, आपने एक बार बना के दे दिया, आगे क्या करना है बॉस? मैं बैठने वाले में तो हूँ नहीं, सोने वाला हूँ नहीं, रुकने वाला हूँ नहीं. तो ideation, value creation, thinking. I tell you, we were in LA recently for Tesla's Elon's robotaxi event. We were invited for that. The energy that guy brings and the thinking he has is unparalleled. और आप सोचो, a guy who's worth 300 billion, SpaceX, उसके 15 दिन आगे आपको देखना था वो SpaceX वो आर्म वाला लॉन्च कर दिया, ट्विटर में कुछ और कर रहे हैं, टेस्ला कुछ और कर रहा है. It's unreal. He's technically now, he's the deputy president, as people
Correct,
say.
yeah.
It's unreal what that guy does. Imagine, because he wants to change the world. And I think that's what. I don't think I want to change I don't have the stature to change the world, but I think I'm trying to do what I can to make a lasting impact in energy transition. And I think within our group, we are fairly large, creating modes in everything we do, at least in India.
So do you meditate?
बस पागल हो गए हो क्या यार? Meditation में तो मैं भाग जाऊंगा.
So now that we've spoken about money also, there are such big numbers. I want to understand your take and your philosophy about money, sir. Your vision with money, sir.
Look, it's a number. Like I said, आप 10 लाख करो, 1 करोड़, 10 करोड़, 1000, 10 करोगे क्या आप? घर और ज्वेलरी छोड़ दो आप, या प्लेन छोड़ दो. उसके अलावा तो योर लिविंग एंड माई लिविंग विल बी प्लस माइनस द सेम. या आप 100 करोगे, मैं 150 कर दूंगा. कोका कोला आप भी पीते हो, मैं भी पीता हूँ. आई थिंक मनी इज जस्ट is a byproduct which comes along the way as you build. I'm not saying it's not important. It's very important. Or at least for us, when we are building businesses, having equity at the right time or pumping money is very important. Profitability is very important. But agar aap plain money ki baat karo, I think it's a byproduct. I don't think that's something which is the end goal. Because also, I would say we've reached, Papa built the group, built the companies to a certain level, that beyond that, it didn't matter. Now it's all about creating larger and larger and larger. I think that's what it is about for me.
So there's so much of that you've achieved. What has been the most emotionally fulfilling journey or the company for you?
Look, I think I'm still very young. There's a very long way ahead. We have achieved certain things, but I think hopefully the future will be multiplier of what we've done, God willing. Having said that, I think the most emotionally fulfilling period is very clear when we turned around Wind. That was a baby. That was the biggest company. It led to so many issues in the family, across banks, creditors, everybody. Those 5 years, you can't even imagine the shit I was in. And when you're 28, 29,
you were just 28.
When you are what? Maybe 30. 28 is when you built it. 31 is when it went through hell.
Crashed.
30-year-old guy, being 2 billion and then being in the gutter, it is hell. It was so painful. So, sticking to what I believed in. Obviously, Papa was always backing me, and I thank him for that. When we came out and we kicked everybody's ass, that is what is the most emotionally fulfilling time. Every bank had written me off. Every investor. Every employee. And आज की डेट में आप देखो, it's like, अरे आइनॉक्स है तो आइनॉक्स GFL. अगर आइनॉक्स GFL है तो होगा. I was telling about Elon. People there worship him. If Elon says something, if he says Mars capture करना है, जो बोला है,
करना है तो करना है.
Elon ने बोल दिया तो होएगा ही. So आज की डेट में, to some extent, when we put out a vision and a target in renewables, the team knows. If DJ said it, वो होएगा. And I don't care, आप करो ना करो, मैं तो करके ही रहूँगा. मैं रुकने नहीं वाला. So the people around us are now very passionate. And you may be IIT, IIM, it doesn't matter to me. If you don't have the energy and the passion to create, पैसा एक चीज है यार, आप सैलरी उल्टी सीधी ये वो कर लो. बहुत अगर आप ना बनाओगे नहीं, you're out. And you have to have the passion to create leadership and build businesses.
Great, sir. This is amazing culture that you've created, sir.
We are trying to create it, because now we are growing, trying to bring the right people, more and more right people in the system.
Sir, there is one more very cool thing about your company, and I want you to speak a little bit about that. That is hydrogen fuel cells.
Yeah.
Sir, क्या future है, क्या बना रहे हैं इससे, क्या होगा दुनिया के अंदर, ये बातें समझते हैं सर.
देखिए, green hydrogen is a little while away, but it is the future from the perspective that what is green hydrogen? It's basically hydrogen generated through electrolysis by using renewable energy. तो आप wind solar दे रहे हो और उससे हाइड्रोजन जो आप जनरेट कर रहे हो rather than conventional power, आप renewable power से कर रहे हो. So it becomes green as opposed to grey and brown and black and whatever you may call it, blue. There are multiple things, right? Renewable power is intermittent, right? तो अगर आज सारी पावर जा रही है और आपकी रिक्वायरमेंट ही नहीं है तो वो तो वेस्ट हो जाएगी, उड़ जाएगी.
Correct.
What this enables you to do is basically convert it into hydrogen. Or hydrogen you can store.
Correct.
Or use that hydrogen to create, say, green methanol or green ammonia. Because if you can create that fuel source or a source of power or fertilizer or whatever you do, तो आप वो convert करके immediately store कर दोगे. And then you use it as a fuel source. Right. So I think the future is very, very deep. And of course, we're still away because the cost of electrolyzers is very high. But it's a bit like what solar was, what wind was. Now where it's the most competitive source of power. So I think in another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you'll continuously see the cost of electrolyzers, which is the basically the cost center to generate green hydrogen, going down drastically. You have government subsidies. It's a question of government subsidy to scale up, karo, and as you scale up more and more and more, economies of scale come in. So I think maybe by 2030 you'll have green hydrogen being very big. And I think what we are doing within that is the heart of electrolyzers are fluoropolymers. 40% of the cost of electrolyzers is fluoropolymers. The membrane. And that's currently virtually being built by one company globally. You have 1 or 2 players, but virtually one of them has a virtually monopolistic play. So we've been working on this for the past 5, 6 years. We've now got all our patents. Various commercial approvals are, trials and commercial approvals are there. So another year to 2 years, this business, I believe, will explode. So that's what we are playing out.
Sir, I am sure you have a great R&D department as well. Sir, how do you approach R&D? Because that's a very tricky department, I would say.
It's not a question of tricky. I think, like I said, fluorine is in our DNA. It's been there for about 35 years. Like I said, Papa built it. So fluorine is in the blood, right? And I think over these years, as we've become the largest players in fluorine, we've created the IP, the learnings, the knowledge base across people, across teams. So R&D is very important because across our fluoropolymers, we have 200 different grades. We've got R&D teams, product engineering teams on the ground in Europe, in US, because some people need 20 tons of a material, 50 tons of a material. Each of them are specced out, tailor-made for them. So it requires a lot of iterations. So I think we have a very, very strong R&D team. Even electrolyzers, the PEM membrane, it's the team which has been working on it for the past 6, 7 years. Of course, there's a lot of management push. There's a lot of guidance, support which we do. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a vision and guidance from the management, R&D won't be able to do much.
Exactly, yeah.
But you also need the right people to work on this. And I think, as I said, because of our 30, 35 years legacy in fluorine, we've learned a lot. Fluoropolymers across US, Europe. We've imbibed a lot of knowledge across some of the leaders. And I think that entire DNA has become like a melting pot, Gujarat Fluoro, to kind of build out both forward integration, backward integration products in this sphere. So I think that's how we approach R&D on the chemical side. On the renewable side, I think we have a good technology partner with whom we have taken perpetual licenses. We can do it ourselves as well. But I think it's not core competence. And I don't think we need to spend time doing that because I think there are people doing that. We would rather do that and scale it up rapidly. Rather than आप 5 साल करो फिर scale करो. अरे ready available है. Quickly scale it up. It's about reaching scale, right? I just don't want to become a scientist and get an award which is not commercialized.
Correct.
Commercialization is what will change the world.
Yes.
वरना क्या फायदा boss?
सही बात है. Sir, last question that I want to ask you in terms of your business. I want you to speak about that largest, biggest plant that you're going to establish. How close is that to you, sir? Because it makes for a great statement to the world.
Right.
Yeah. So I want you to speak on that.
Look, I think GFCLEV is where we're setting up the world's largest battery chemical complex outside of China. Right? So the products we make in that company virtually have 40% of the cost of the battery itself. And the battery is about 40% of the cost of the electric vehicle. So depending on which chemistry, in effect, we control 10 to 15% of an electric vehicle's cost. Simplistically put, I'll repeat.
Correct, yeah.
We control 10 to 15% of an entire electric vehicle's cost. This is the single largest pie of the vehicle, because you don't have gearboxes in an electric vehicle. And I think majority of them are fluorine backed. So we have a very, very strong mode. It's not about you having 10 billion. Paisa bhi hai, fluorine is too difficult. Even the biggest guys don't get into it. Some products, yes, you can get into. But because we've been very, very early movers, we've moved in, set up commercial plants. It's taken 3-4 years. You're hearing about this today because we've raised capital. But जो 4 साल से काम चल रहा है, तब किसी ने सुना नहीं था, ना हमने उसके बारे में कभी बात करी थी. Now everyone is getting overexcited because the plants have gone live. We're getting into global agreements with some of the largest guys. As I said, we've recently raised capital in a pre-rev company at a 3 billion valuation. We've raised 1,000 crores. We have another 1,000 crores which is being tied up, which should be in the near future. So we would have raised almost 2,000 crores of equity in a pre-rev company. But it's not about pre-rev. The scale-up of this business is going to be virtually from 30x from the day we start revenues. Wow. And this is not a cash burning company कि आप consumer acquire करके पैसे blow कर रहे हो, right? So we're not a tech company blowing money to be the end survivor.
Correct.
This is a very profitable business. So I think we're very excited. I think with IRA in the US and potentially as President Trump comes in with the Chinese tariffs, I think this business is just going to scale up more and more and more. Honestly, every time we have a review, which happens very fairly often in the EV business because it's scaling up so rapidly, we're trying to see how can we build that faster? What more can we do? So I think we're deploying huge capital. We're setting up newer and newer plants within the complex. So I think in another 2 to 3 years, this business is going to become game-changing for us.
Last 2 questions that I have for you, sir.
Yeah.
First of all, what is the vision, sir? क्या है आगे Inox GFL Group का vision in the simplest of the words for the world to know? क्या कमाल करने वाले हैं आप?
Yeah, it's funny you asked me this. In fact, we just had the first time we did this, our Inox GFL Group Vision Day on Monday in Bombay.
अच्छा.
Where we had about 250 odd investors across the board. Where the chairman was there, my father was there, and I think the vision we've set out for ourselves is we want to be champions in the entire energy transition space. As I mentioned, we're in EV, we're in wind, we're in solar, we're getting into solar, we're in power, renewable power, we're in green hydrogen, we're in, so we've captured the entire piece. Correct. I don't think we've left any piece of the energy transition piece. As I said, barring distribution we've captured everything. Correct. And what we've guided for is we will 4x the group EBITDA in the next 3 years. Broadly, chemical should be half, the renewable arm should be half. So I think that's a very large vision, mission statement, at least for the next 3 years. I mean, uske aage to, we keep doing.
Of course.
And like I said, we keep building, but that's where we are.
Amazing, sir. So the last question that I have for you, it's an emotional question, personal question. Sir, अगर आप अपने 23 साल वाले वर्जन को, if you want to tell something to that version, or at 28, or at 31, क्या बताएंगे सर? क्या चेंज करेंगे अपने बारे में सर?
I am very aggressive and very impatient. Maybe I would just, I wouldn't change too much because the journey has been phenomenal. I would like to undo those 5 years where I lost a lot of time for no fault of ours. But I'm not crying about it.
Correct.
But now we're building things with a vengeance. We're trying to make up for those 5 years. At least I'm trying to do that. Hopefully in the next 1 year we would have made up for those 5 years to the best extent that we can. But I think I would probably just say there will be ups and downs. Don't get shaken. Be patient. As I said, I'm very impatient. On a scale of 10, I'm negative 10. During the bad phase, I became 0 because there was no option. I've probably gone back to being negative 10 or maybe negative 20 now. But I think I would just say it's a great, it's a journey. You will have ups and downs. Don't get shaken. Don't get stirred. Be resilient. Persevere. I think that's about it because passion, energy, all of that came along the way. I was always like that. It's just that you would get demotivated at times. And I think anybody would, in a scenario where it's so painful and so hard, and everybody is gali galaching in the right word. Kya karoge yaar? You're 30 years old. Everybody thinks you're a piece of shit. But I think just be patient. Stay, believe in yourself, and you will come out on tops. That's how I think.
Sir, I want to thank you a lot for taking out the time.
No, thank you so much.
I would like to say, sir, your passion has made me passionate, at least for a while. Your energy has given me energy. for a while for sure.
ये क्या मंत्रास ओनली एनर्जी,
नहीं,
अगर
नहीं, sir.
एनर्जी नहीं पास करेंगे और ग्रीन
Sir,
एनर्जी
rub
तो
off
क्या
कर
फायदा?
rub off कर nice one sir, nice one. Thank you so much for
Thank you
doing
so
this
much.
with us, sir.
Thank you for taking out the time and doing this, and I hope I didn't bore you too
No
much.
sir, it was one of the best podcasts that I have done, and I'm not just saying it, sir. People will comment on this and you will get to know, sir. One of the nicest podcasts. Thank you so much, sir.
Lovely to be with you.
Thank you, sir.